Here we go. I'm going to start from this end with Dr. David Stovall. The U.S. Department of Education is moving towards making educational institutions more accountable based on statistical data, such as what? Test scores, safety, enrollment rates, graduation rates, transfer rates, recruitment rates, and retention rates. You notice many of these items are quantitative, not qualitative. Will these trends put pressure on administrators to achieve these results to appear best in class, end quote, but harm students in urban communities? So ultimately, let's break this question down. Will all of this data that the United States Department of Education is collecting, will this harm students, or does this make administrators and teachers look better? Dr. David Stovall.
Well, let me be quick. Can everybody hear me all right?
Yes.
All right, let me be quick. First, the first part of the question, will this data actually improve education? No. And I'll have to go further than that. Now, the second part, what will this data be used to do? This is what we have to understand. And folks on the panel, I might be disinvited after I say this. The federal government does not have the interests of the black community in mind.
That's right.
So let's be clear about that. And because it doesn't, the data that will be used will many times be used to further limit our access to education and further opportunities. We see that here in a space like Chicago, when we see 80% of public housing being destroyed and those families being relocated to the western and southern suburbs. We know that the primary determinant of a family deciding where to move is the schools. And now that those schools have been closed, we get a new private schools, and those new private schools, I will argue and be clear about this, are not for us. And they're safe. So we need to be clear about what is happening and how it is. Of course, we'll have some spaces that will be bastions of quality education. But for the most part, this thing, by and large, will be used to further distance us from educational opportunities.
Thank you so much. I think that the data can be very helpful, and I might also be disinvited because I'm a fan of accountability. At some point, we do have to begin to measure up, and the only way to begin to measure up is by having this data and having our students take the same test. And I'm losing my train of thought, but I'm a fan of accountability. I think that the data will help us because what it's going to do is it is going to push teachers and administrators to do what they have to do for children, and it can be done. And that's always going to be my platform. Students can achieve on these tests no matter what community they're in. And I think that unless that level of accountability, that level of pressure is placed on the people who can actually make the difference for these young people, it's not going to ever occur. Part of the reason that we're in the state that we're in is because we have a lot of educators who slacked off and were not held accountable and allowed students to fall beneath where they should have fallen.
So much. Dr. Wayne Watson, I'm not trying to lead your answer, but will this data help or harm? And if you may want to angle this toward K through 12, blending into 2-year and 4-year institutions, please.
Data is always a great value. Metrics, administrators, education administrators, they utilize data and metrics. But we have to answer a couple of questions first. That is, who gathers the data? Next question, who interprets the data? Next question, who establishes the policy based upon the data that has been reported? Fourth question, who defines the strategies based upon the data and the policy that has just been set forth? All of that makes data valued to whom? Okay? So it may be valuable to one community, and it may be a destructive force to another community. Next point. There's a science of learning. We need to look at the data that addresses the science of learning. And the science of learning for men is different from the science of learning for boys is different from the science of learning for girls. For example, when a young girl is asleep, her mind is working at about 30%. Even when she's depressed, a young boy, his mind is like zero. No. It's just a fact. But we as educators need to utilize that data. Utilize it in the classroom. And I can go on and on and on. So there's value to data. Last point is that data often is used to deal with symptoms and not causation. What is the causation of why our Johnny is not passing? They develop data around the symptoms. And then we end up coming to conclusions based around symptoms. The last thing I want to say is that I must acknowledge the president of Timuel College, John Dozer, for making it possible for us to be here today. And he is president.
Dr. Wayne Watson. Dr. Timuel Black, historian extraordinaire. The test scores, the enrollment rates, and the graduation rates. Historically, sir, is this data collected by the U.S. government, is this going to help or harm students and teachers?
Well, we can look at the results of the data that has been accumulated and identify the people who have benefited the most and the people who benefited the least. And when we see the people who benefited, who have been damaged the most, it's true for me that these are minorities and primarily African Americans who have not done well. Having taught for quite a while, I know what behavior and data do they go together. And again, repeating what has been said already, and that is who put the data together, who created the standardized test. Can the standardized test be objective? If so, then if it is, then you're saying a group of people consistently must be inferior because they don't do well on the data, even from the middle class. Now, years and years ago, a professor at University of Chicago was the first black full professor with tenure from a big school. Allison Davis, his son is now Allison Davis Sr. He tested in all kinds of ways. The data is not objective. And therefore, if you use that as the criteria to determine the future of a person, then you can wipe out not only a group, you can wipe them out deliberately. And we know the standardized test was created originally for that purpose during World War I. It can be used, but who puts it together? Can you get somebody from Robert Taylor who's pretty smart to go with the data that they put together to objectify it? I doubt whether they would, even if that person is right. I have too many students, former students, who didn't do well on the data, but out in life they have done very, very well. One became an advisor to the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States. Oh, dumb Bill.